Sup traders, it's the Monday 6th of October, first proper week of October. Let's see what market has done. We've got NFP coming out on Friday, and that's about the only major news that's out this week. So going into this week, if you watch my video from last week, I was saying my analysis was that price came into this low sell side liquidity, bounced off, came into a bearish fair value gap after price had been displacing lower, found some resistance, but then pushed up right above this inverse fair value gap, came back, held that inverse fair value gap, held the open gap from last week, and then it put in a bullish engulfing candle that closed above this inverse fair value gap. So we can get rid of this one for now. I do expect price to continue higher up. And then I was expecting today price to just range around this area and not come below that low from last week, Thursday. But it really closed quite strongly below that during the, I think, London session, or even, just after London session, session, and then bounced off. Then after that, I was watching for price to come into this sell side liquidity, which I'm not sure if it'll come down to that, but we can leave that there because I'm not going to trade in this middle, especially after price puts in such a bearish candle. We also had SMT with GU. Is this low wick candle taking liquidity off all of these lows? It was one of the main reasons I was expecting price to continue higher up, but because it's Monday, I'm not really looking to trade. We had this essentially price gapped open, right? We took out this liquidity up here, this swing high, and gapped open, pushed lower, rejected the gap, boom, and then found support around here. And I'm not really interested in going long at that level. So for me, euro dollar right now is not really that appealing. We did have this range. If you look at this is quite a nice range, right? This is the fourth test on the range, and price came down there, put in this bullish engulfing candle, and that would have been probably a good trade in the past. To me, there's just a lot of noise going on around here in euro dollar, and it's not something I'm really interested in trading, to be honest. I'd much rather move on to pound dollar, which seems a bit more cleaner. With pound dollar, I had my eye on this high since last week, and I was saying, price pushed up, right? We rejected this inverse fair value, bearish fair value gap. However, we did reject this low, displaced up quite strongly, pulled back into this bearish inverse fair value gap, bullish inverse fair value gap, held with this low wick candle, and this to me is an order block before price finds some kind of a support up, and which it did. Friday closed with an inside bar candle, and I was predicting price to come not this low. I was actually predicting price to come into this range, or at least at the low of this range, grab liquidity and then push up, but it just opened quite strongly down there. But this was a much better trade today that happened. I didn't take the trade, but because it's Monday and I wasn't even paying attention to the market, gapped open, pulled down, pushed up, rejected this high. I wasn't really looking to short anywhere around here, so I wasn't interested in that. Price came down, held this swing low from the open, and then put in this accumulation, then again pushed lower and took liquidity again one more time. So if my bias was bullish, which it had been, and we also had SMT with EU, because EU had now made a low, whereas GU hadn't. This is such a good setup. So we had SMT with EU. Price formed a pattern that I quite like. 15-minute, that was a channel with RSI divergence, and channel is what I like. Right, RSI diverging, boom. At the bottom of that channel, we had this range forming, which is something I quite used to like. I haven't traded in a while, but it's a pattern that I used to trade. We had just 1 test, 2 test, 3 test, 4 test, and then at the low we just taking out the middle of the range would have been enough, but it comes down and takes out that low as well. And ideally that would have been quite a good trade, just to go long somewhere around there with this high, I wouldn't have traded anything higher than that. And this is what I was predicting going into the week. Like I said, I was predicting that price might pull back into this range, maybe take out liquidity off this low, and then I'll look to enter. Maybe I was hoping that would happen some more time during Tuesday open, but look at it, it moved up quite strongly just before that, or on Monday. We might pull back down to this level one more time. I don't know, anything can happen, and I would much rather wait for price to give me some kind of a move or pattern before I look to go long. Sub traders, it's Tuesday 7th of October. I'm not really sure what price is doing at the moment. It's a bit mumbo jumbo right now. I have no bias. I'm expecting price, or I'm predicting that if price comes down to this level, this sell side liquidity with a channel, then I'll look to go long. But until then, I have honestly no prediction, because I have no idea, because price came down to cut this sell side liquidity previously, bounced up, came and held this daily time fair value gap, and then pushed lower. And yeah, it's just not sure what it wants to do to me right now. I guess NFP is coming out on Friday. Still got Wednesday and Thursday until that comes out, right? So we've got some time for market to come down to that sell side liquidity in some kind of a channel, which could potentially give me an opportunity to go long. As I was saying, I was bullish going into the day. I was expecting some bullish momentum, especially since this last Friday with this low wick bearish candle. Seeing this was one of the main reasons I wanted to go long, which price, pulled down, closed below it, and then pushed up. To me, I thought this was just going to be a liquidity grab with the daily time frame candle closure yesterday with this low wick candle, but it pushed up, rejected this potential inverse fair value gap, and then dropped lower. It's only this morning when I saw this bullish order block, or this bullish candle that failed to hold, followed by this bearish candle. So this bullish candle that failed to continue, which was then followed by the bearish candle, was one of the main reasons I was thinking this morning that we might see some further push lower. Especially we had this, and I was waiting for price to pull back into the 618, essentially a failed retest for me. So this was a failed retest, market structure shifts, and now at the 8 a.m. candle UK time, I was waiting for a pullback to 618. Didn't have my entry there, but it is something I was watching because I was predicting price to find some kind of resistance at that 618 and then push lower. And then it dropped. It's ranging right now. It might come down and take out this low before pushing higher. But the close below this low is quite a good sign that we might, continue lower. But looking at the higher time frame, daily time frame, we might continue to range around this level if we are bullish, and then push up. Honestly, I have no idea right now. I'd much rather wait for price to come to a point of interest like this sell side liquidity with a channel, and then trade from there. Until then, I have no clue. So we left this bearish fair value gaps on the 240, right? It could have traded at the high of that level, which would have been around here as price came into that level on the 15-minute time frame, because you wouldn't trade that on the 5-minute time frame, on the 1 hour time frame. Price come up there. We had that market structure shift, right? We had the liquidity grab, market structure shift, pullback, and then entered on pullback. Potentially drop down, maybe not. We had the channel, but this didn't come at a key level, so that's not really interesting to me. So let's just see how price accumulates here. It might come into the 618 level now, right, and then find resistance tomorrow. I do think that would probably be a good trade, but it's in between range. I'm not really interested in trading. There's no need to force something that isn't there. Even if I predict it's going to come down to that level, I don't really want to be trading there. So let's leave EUR/dollar for now. Pound/dollar was another interesting one, because pound/dollar I was much more bullish than I was with EUR/dollar, mainly because we grabbed liquidity down here, displaced up, and we've been holding this inverse fair value gap, even though we did reject this bearish fair value gap on the daily time frame. And again, we're trading between 2 points of interest, which is why it's annoying, because it's not really clear which direction price is going. However, because we had this bullish engulfing candle yesterday that took out the low of one Friday candle, which was an inside bar candle, but then again you can argue took a high off the Friday candle, again inside bar candle, but it was a bullish engulfing liquidity candle yesterday, and because of that, going into today I was bullish, and I didn't obviously want to trade in random areas, and also because of the fact that price rejected this high, right, this high up in this range. This was a good trade actually, 1 2 3 4 5th test of this range, and rejected with this bullish pin bar, failed to hold, and then dropped. And going into London session, I was predicting price to drop lower, but again, similar to euro dollar, it never pulled back into the area I wanted. This was my prediction going into the week on Friday or Sunday night, that price might pull back into this range on Monday or Tuesday and potentially take out this low and then continue higher. But then we gapped open, ranged, dropped lower. There was a potential channel trade here after this accumulation. Price pumped up to the high of this range, had a channel on the 15-minute up here that could have been potentially traded, but it wasn't really during the time I trade, and then dropped into an area, again this low, which I think is quite a good low that for price to find support, if it is going to find support, and then pushed up immediately. There was no way I could have entered that. Honestly, no channels for me. I would have only entered that on a channel. There's nothing else I would have wanted to enter that on. And yeah, right now it's ranging. Maybe we'll pull back into this range. Maybe we'll push up one more time and then push down one more time. Who knows? Essentially, we have formed, if we are bullish, and because my drawn liquidity going into the week was up here, if we are bullish and we are going to the high, then maybe we've formed the channel, the flag pattern. Right, if you look at this, this is a nice flag pattern. Maybe we'll push up again, push down one more time, grab liquidity, and then push up. That would be a good play. But like euro dollar, I don't really have much bias going into the week for this one either. And I'm just playing it by the day and waiting for price to come into specific areas and then look for specific patterns and then trade, because order flow for me is not clear, and when it's not clear, I don't want to just jump in and trade at any opportunity that looks like it might go up or lower. Like this one is coming into a bearish fair value gap on the 240 time frame. Right, you might want to trade that, but it's in the middle of a range for me, and I would much rather wait for price to come lower before I look for any trading opportunities. So yeah, let's see how tomorrow plays out.